Up until now, we've built all the requirements requested by the travel agency concerning the web application to be used by the agency itself. Now the agency also wishes to offer a small application for smart devices for use by the end users. The objective is that any person can use their smart device to consult all the cities that the agency offers trips to, available excursions, principal tourist attractions, and so on. So let's go to GeneXus and review our transaction designs. We have the country transaction with the cities of each country. The attraction transaction that has the country ID and city ID attributes as foreign keys. The airport transaction that also has country ID and city ID as foreign keys. And the trip transaction, again with country ID and city ID as foreign keys. Okay, we remember that in previous videos we learned about the work with pattern for web, and we applied it to some transactions. So now let's go to the country transaction and select the patterns section. And we note that besides the work with pattern for web, GeneXus also offers the application for the same pattern for smart devices. We select work with for smart devices, and we go on to see the nodes of the tree on the left, and those we see on the right. Below the node that corresponds to the country level, there is the list node. If we click on it, we see that it corresponds to a grid that has the country name attribute inserted in it. The node in this pattern, called list, corresponds to the grid that will list the data of each record in the panel that it calls up. The grid in the panel that it will call up shows the list of names of all the countries registered. So in this case, we see that the layout for the list node is already shown instead of seeing a list of attributes to be included in the grid under the node. Let's go on to look at the detail node. We can associate the term detail with what we know as view in the work with for web pattern, or seeing the details of a particular record in the list. The detail node is composed of two sections, general and city. Like the functionality implemented by the work with for web pattern, the general section displays the data associated with the country, and the city section displays all the cities. Now let's have a look at this node, level city. We've just seen the node that corresponds to the first of the country transaction's two levels. This node corresponds to the second level. Below the same, we see the general section like it also is here in country general. Then there is one section for each 1n relation that the cities have. In other words, each city has n attractions, n airports, and n excursions. Let's apply this pattern to see what it generates and offers. We just click on the Apply this pattern on Save box. We save. And we note that below the country section, we now also see the work with devices country object, which was automatically generated by the application of the pattern work with for smart devices. The difference here, as opposed to when we apply the for web pattern, here we don't see a set of generated objects, only the work with devices country object. Now we have to create an access menu in the device so that said menu connects to the functionality generated by the pattern. For this, we are going to create a GeneXus dashboard object. The dashboard object will then allow us to create access menus that conform to our application for smart devices. We select New Object, and in the Smart Devices category, we select Dashboard. We give it the name Travel Agency, here, the options that the menu will include are added. We right-click on the item node and select Add Action. In the box, we select the Work With Devices country object. In the Dashboard Object properties, we put the description Travel Agency and we can also choose an image. If we don't like any of the images due to a lack of availability in our knowledge base, we can select an image from a file and import it. So now, because we've created objects for smart devices in our knowledge base, we will see that when we hit F5, the emulator for Android is automatically executed, also allowing access to our web application from the developer menu. We hit F5. Now we see that the developer menu shows, apart from the options for access to the web application, an automatically generated QR code that enables us to download the application to a smart device. Now we let the Android emulator come up. We click on our knowledge base, and the dashboard is seen in execution with the established image. We select it, and we see all the registered countries. Or what we saw as list, we select France, for example. We see France's general information, or its cities. We select Paris, and here we see the general selection and related information, its attractions, airports, and excursions. We return to GeneXus to personalize the application pattern a little. For example, let's suppose that we only want to see excursions for a date later than the current one, or in other words, upcoming excursions. So we click on the trip section, and in the conditions, we put trip date greater than today. We save. Now perhaps we want the list of countries to be seen in a more attractive form, and not just a list of names. For example, the flags of each country could be displayed as a gallery of images, each one accompanied by the name of the country. When a flag is selected, the related information is accessed. We've defined a new attribute in the country transaction, country flag image. And we've done the physical reorganization and image loading to save time. Now we return to the pattern Work With for Smart Devices Country to define the list of countries that will be displayed as a gallery of flags. We select the list of countries. We select the grid to see its properties. And in the control type property of the grid, we select SD Image Gallery. In the data attribute property, we specify the attribute that contains the image to be displayed. In this case, it's country flag. And then in the title attribute property, we can specify an attribute whose value will be the title of the image. We select country name. At this point, we see all of these modifications in execution. We hit F5 again. The emulator opens, we select the KB URL, and we see our application image, which is associated to the dashboard. And now we see the list of countries as a gallery of flags. We select France, and we see the country's information. We select Paris and its list of excursions. And we can verify that the excursions displayed are for dates later than the current one. Now let's take a look at the airports. Only the name is seen, but it would be helpful to the application's users to also be able to see a map with the airport's location. We go back to GeneXus. We're going to define a new attribute in the airport transaction that will allow us to store the information that we need. This information should be based on some type of data that allows generation of the geographical information needed to display a map with the location in the device. For this purpose, GeneXus offers us the geolocation domain. This is a type of data that permits the administration of geographical information in terms of latitude and longitude. The attribute is called airport geolocation, and we've reorganized and loaded the latitude and longitude for the location of each airport. With this information in our database, the device displays the map with the corresponding location. And to make the application even more attractive, we'll add an image of each airport. And so, we've also created the airport image attribute of image type and loaded photos of the airports. Before executing the application, we verify in the Work With for devices that all the information will be presented in the way we want it. We select the airport section. Let's personalize the view a bit. And to take better advantage of the space on the device's screen, we're going to place the controls vertically instead of horizontally, which is the way they're normally displayed. We do this in the grid. We add the geolocation data so that we can see the map with the location. Now let's edit the properties of the attribute with the image. And in the label position property of each attribute, we specify that the label position is top. We insert the airport geolocation attribute, and in the attribute label position, we indicate top. And then we modify the label airport geolocation to say only geolocation. We do the same for airport image. In the label caption property, we just leave it as image. And now, we see the application in execution again. We press F5. We select France, city Paris, and then airports, and we see the following. To see the map, we click here. And we can click to zoom in on the map. Until we see the Charles de Gaulle Airport. We return to GeneXus. And lastly, let's suppose that the agency has requested a button on the country's gallery display that, when pressed, shows something like this. Here we now have all the countries listed and the registered attractions for each one. In this way, the end user gets a general view of the number and type of attractions that each country has to offer. Once again, we create a new object in GeneXus. This time, it's a panel for SD that is a type of web panel, but for smart devices. For the name, we type SD, countries, attractions. And this object is the type of web panel, but for smart devices. We drag a grid from the toolbox and insert the attributes attraction photo, attraction name, and city name. We verify that the labels aren't displayed. For this, we edit the properties of each attribute. In the label position property, we put none. And we do the same for city name. So that the end user can access this information on the main display, we're going to add the button that we mentioned to the List of Countries section of the Work With for Smart Devices object. We save this object, and we go again to Work With for Smart Devices. We go to the List node, and from the toolbox, we drag a button to the application bar. In the button's event name, we type Attractions. We double-click on the button, and we're now in the Events section. From the folder view, we drag the SD Countries Attractions object, and we complete the callout with 2 parentheses, like we did in the web application. We hit F5, in the list display, if we select the emulator's menu button, we see a new option offered, Attractions. We select it, and we can see all the registered attractions. In this listing, the cities are repeated, so the countries are also repeated even though they aren't being displayed to us. We want another format, so we're going to group the attractions by country. We go back to GeneXus and select the grid, then Properties, and we observe the property orders. From here we'll define a new order called Countries. We right-click, Add Attribute, and we add the country name attribute as the attribute for the order. And in its properties, we define the break by property with the value true. We indicate the grouping will be by country name. In the description attribute, we also select country name to see the name of the country. We execute the application again. We press F5. And we execute the application again. We press the menu button. We select our Attractions button. And now we see the attractions grouped by country. In this way, we've developed a little module for smart devices in order to offer the end users another option for accessing the information managed by the travel agency. And lastly, we execute the changes in the GeneXus server.